Hi, I'm Karen, and this is the Mental Health Hope You're Not Alone podcast. This space is all about breaking the stigma of mental health, where we'll share personal stories, helpful online resources, and meaningful insights, all with one goal in mind: to remind you that you are not alone in your mental health journey. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Mental Health Hope You're Not Alone podcast. So excited to be here. Today we're going to talk about depression. We're going to take a deep dive into depression and talk about definition of depression, the symptoms of it, talk about stories, including my own. I'm really excited about today's episode, so let's get started. The first story comes to you from the Mental Health Foundation, and this is out of the UK, but it's a really good story, and so I'd like to read it for you. The story is about one woman and her struggles with depression. So it says, "My struggle was speaking up about my depression. Loneliness isn't just sitting in an empty room or a house with no one to talk to. It was about what was going on inside and how I was feeling, that I didn't understand what was going on. I had a lot of physical symptoms of depression. I just didn't recognize them. My skin was dry, my hair was falling out, and I lost a significant amount of weight. I didn't understand the constant noise in my head, and just getting up in the morning and functioning took every ounce of energy. Didn't understand what was happening, and I didn't tell anyone except my best friend. It felt more lonely because I couldn't speak about it because things didn't make sense." This is the title, so there's like separate sections, so this is another portion here. So it's okay to not be okay. Building up the courage to tell people how I was feeling was hard. It's that feeling of not wanting to admit that you're not okay. In a world where we're being told to suck it up, everything will be okay, the reality for me is that it wasn't. Once I started my therapy and could feel I was making progress, one of the first things I wanted to do was tell my colleagues at work. I needed to tell them what had happened. I kept things very top line, but explaining out loud really helped and immediately made me feel less lonely because people knew. And from the moment I began to feel better about myself and found I told another person every week or so. Everyone has been very supportive and no one has treated me any differently. That's really nice. Work it out. Feeling heard makes things so much better. Of course, it's much easier to talk at once you're getting better and getting the support you need, but I wish I could have spoken to people earlier when I was really needed people the most. I'm not ashamed of what happened, and I live with it now. On days when it feels the loneliness is creeping in, I realize I haven't spoken to people for a while, or it feels like things have caught up with me. I can recognize I need help. We spend so much time at work and with our colleagues, and I think there's a huge amount we can do to create workplaces and relationships where conversations can happen. I'm the chair of a mental health well-being group at work and want to equip people to be able to have those conversations. In the same way my peers and colleagues looked out for me, I want to look out for my team in return. I feel so much more in control of my well-being as a result of my therapy and want to share what I've learned. If I wake up and feel like it's going to be a difficult day, then I rewrite my to-do list and set new targets that are realistic. That's smart. I know what I'll be able to achieve and what I won't, and I know that my next day will be better. I want my team to know they can do that too. If you feel affected by the context that you read, please get help for the support. There's a helpline. My name is Gabby, and I'm in my early 30s. A milestone birthday made me feel lonely. My experience of loneliness spiraled into depression, but looking back on this period, I can see how talking to people helped my recovery. In 2019, I turned 30. I had the most amazing celebrations. I celebrated with a lot of friends and family over about 5 days, and at the end of it, I remember crying because I felt so loved. I didn't realize, though, at the time, but there was something about reaching that milestone and reflecting on what I perhaps imagined my life would have looked like that contributed to me becoming very unwell. I had a good job and a career, but lots of other things I'd expected just hadn't materialized. I didn't own my own home, I wasn't married or in a relationship, and I didn't have any children. If it was the tip of the iceberg, I started to become unwell and things began to spiral. Loneliness was an experience where I could be surrounded by the people that I love or be in a really exciting meeting at work but still feel completely disconnected. Things had built up over the years, and by the end of the year, I was extremely unwell and had been referred to a mental health service. I think that's really cool. Cool. That's probably not the right word. I think that's really is a really good explanation that you can continue to surround yourself with people and you feel love, but you still are very disconnected. And I feel that way. I think for me, it's mostly feeling disconnected because I know people don't understand and there's such a stigma around mental health, and people do treat you differently when they know you have a mental health issue. And it's happened to me. I do tell people, but I tell people that I feel safe with, which isn't very many people. It's usually my close friends. Anyway, so I thought that was a really good discussion about her journey with mental health and trying to get back to feeling healthy. Okay, this is another story. This is from the Mayo Clinic, and I don't know if you know anything about the Mayo Clinic, but they're an amazing organization, health organization, and they've got, I think, 2 or 3 locations across the country, and from what I understand, it's free healthcare, and they take care of you. It's on a case-by-case basis, so you basically send your case in, and they evaluate whether or not they're going to be able to help you, and then allow you to come to one of their locations to get that help. And it's my understanding that it's at no cost, which is really awesome. So anyway, this is from the Mayo Clinic, and this is somebody else's story. And so I apologize. I'm not the best reader in the world. My dyslexia causes me to not see things the way other people do, so I'm not the greatest reader. But I do want to read this story. So it's about a woman named Melissa. So it says, finding ways to navigate depression, rising above the stigma. Despite common misconception, depression is not a choice. Although Melissa Goeman, I think I pronounce her name, Goeman, has a wonderful and amazing life, she also has battled anxiety and depression for many years and attempted unaliving herself. These coexisting truths underscore her assertions that what people see on the surface about others may not reflect their mental health reality, and that mental health struggles are not choices, but are medical conditions that can be managed with a combination of medication and talk therapy. People can sometimes make it seem like being depressed is a choice, said Goman, an IT senior systems analyst in information technology. If I choose to not be depressed, I would choose it. So true. If I could choose to not take medication today, I would choose that. It was not my choice to have depression and anxiety, but that was the card that I was dealt, and I'm doing my best to live with it. And this is another section here. Medication pathway is one of trial and error. Oh, for sure. For Goldman, feelings of isolation and being different from her peers started in high school. But it wasn't until she sought treatment for sleep issues in college that she was diagnosed with anxiety and depression as well as insomnia. These diagnoses put her on a roller coaster ride to find the right medication to treat her condition. She shared that her first medication experience in college made her very sensitive and over the edge. And after a fight with her friend, she took an entire bottle of trazodone. I think that's a sleeping medication. Was taken by ambulance to the hospital, had her stomach pumped, and was placed on an involuntary psychiatric hold until her parents could get to her. From then until now, Goman explained that she went from taking no medication to a lot of medication to less medication, which didn't work, and then another medication, which did work. And most recently, an increased dosage of that medication, only taking a break when she was pregnant with her son. I probably will never take medication for insomnia again, she added. But I also know that it doesn't work for me to not take my other medication because I have mood swings. It's very difficult without it. You have to be consistent. That's true. Medication and therapy work together. Go believes that pairing medication with therapy makes a big difference, stating that although her medication certainly helped her, it was the therapy which she defines as self-care that really allow her to move forward. I have a great support system. My husband is awesome, but I believe in therapy because sometimes you are having feelings that people in your life don't quite understand. When you tell a therapist something, he or she will listen and say, here's another perspective. You are more open to hearing from that third party who can validate what you are feeling without having to put a filter on it. Ooh, that's true. Going noted. You may have thoughts that people could think are incredibly weird, but a therapist knows what is normal for you and why you think or feel a certain way. It may be something that's totally odd to other people, but therapy helps you work through it. She also uses self-care techniques such as taking 10 to 15 minutes by herself during the day and always having something on the books to look forward to. Ooh, that's an idea. I struggle with living the same day over and over again. Oh, I struggle with that. I'm going to pause here a minute because I do struggle with that. For years, I used to be a shift worker, which meant my shifts that I worked were different every week, we'll say, and I did that weekly. I worked one set of shift for 5 days, and I would change and work another set of shifts for 5 days, whether it be like evenings or days or mids, and I really love that schedule. It's not for everybody, but I absolutely loved it. And for the last 2 years, I've been working a Monday through Friday with the weekends off, and I absolutely hate it. And I know people are going to look at me with, like, I've got two heads and why on earth I would not like that. But it's just who I am. Back from when I was in high school till up until about 2 years ago, I never had a schedule where I worked a normal Monday through Friday with weekends off. I was always working different schedules because I worked in a movie theater and then a bank, and then I went off to college and got my degree, and I started working the shift work and working different schedules during each week with days off during the week and typically working over the weekend with the occasional weekend off. And that schedule really fit me and I absolutely loved it. And for the last 2 years now, I've been doing a Monday through Friday, and it's just not me, and I hate it. And I find myself getting really bored with it. Not the job necessarily, because I do like what I'm doing right now, but that schedule is so monotonous that I can't stand it. I'm stuck and I don't know how to get out of being able to move into maybe a different schedule or maybe even going back to the shift work. And there was just something about having the days off during the week that I absolutely loved, and I don't have that anymore, and I don't like it. It just doesn't fit me. And so I totally get what she's saying here about struggle of living the same day over and over again, because that's exactly how I feel right now. My days are basically the same. And even to like what I wear. I work a Monday through Friday job, and I work at a location where you don't have to be dressed up. A nice business casual is preferred. And even that I find boring. I feel like I'm wearing the same things all the time, and I hate it, and I don't know what to do about it. I know, yes, I could quit or find another job. That's just not conducive right now. And so I have to find a way to make changes. And so I am actually trying to do that. Like just recently I bought 2 new outfits, and they don't at all fit the style that I've been wearing, because I've also fallen into the same style every day, which is really boring. And I can't wear fun shoes anymore because I broke my ankle a couple of years ago now, which is shocking to say that it's been 2 years. But I can't wear, at least now, I can't wear heeled shoes, and so I have to wear tennis shoes to work. Or I actually just got these really cute slip-ons that I think are amazing, and so I can wear those. But overall, I don't have much variety in a pair of shoes that I can wear anymore, and so that really limits the excitement I get for what I'm wearing. But what I can do is, like I said, I've got these 2 new outfits that I can wear, which I think are going to be a little bit fun. And then also, too, I just bought some jewelry. And it's not expensive jewelry by any stretch of the imagination. Matter of fact, it's quite the opposite. But it gives me some way to change things out of my wardrobe, because I didn't really have that as an option. And I'll say this, too, that I have this really beautiful jewelry I don't know what you want to call it, but it's a kind of jewelry box that hangs on the wall, and it's really big. It's like 3 feet or more long by a foot and some change wide. And I don't wear all the jewelry in there, but I do have a lot of jewelry. It is cheap jewelry. It's not at all expensive. I finally, after living in my current house for a year and a half, I finally got it up on the wall. And so that gives me something to look forward to with respect to changing out my jewelry, because I just didn't do that very often. I actually, just sitting in this room, I've got some jewelry that I need to actually get out and put up. But, so anyway, I do completely understand how she feels when she talks about living the same day over and over again, because I absolutely feel that in my very soul. And I don't. It's really hard when that's not normal for me. And I'm a night owl. I like to stay up skinny late on the weekends. I know always, because I don't want to sleep my day away the next day. And then I tend to have things that I want to do usually around the house. And so I tend to not do that. But I am a night owl, and I love working in the middle of the night. It just was something that I absolutely love doing. And there are days, several days, matter of fact, that I regret leaving my job that I left in 2019. You always think the grass is greener. And at the time, it was probably the right choice, because I felt like I wasn't like I maybe had gotten everything out of that position that I could have, and that I was really working towards something else. And so I thought the grass was greener on the other side, when in fact it was not. I missed that job every day. I missed the people I worked with. I also was living in my hometown, which I feel like I've been gone for a long time, and I would love to be able to go back to that. It makes me sad that I decided to leave. And on top of that, that was when all of my anxiety and depression started, was when I left that job that I didn't like for another one, and was then mistreated in that position, and that continued for several years. So, hindsight is 2020, as they say, and I did make the right decision at the time, but looking back on it now, I should have just stayed there, and I regret that I didn't do that. So anyway, sorry, I digress. Let's move on with the article here. So fighting the stigma is the next section here. It says, when Goman hears friends or colleagues say that depression is a choice or isn't real, she speaks up to report that she takes medication for depression every single day. Just because you can't see someone's brain has different chemicals does not mean it's not real. Some days I'm extremely happy, and other days I just want to stay in bed and take a beat to feel sad. I agree with that. Goman reports that her supervisors at Mayo Clinic largely Gomer reports that her supervisors at Mayo Clinic largely have supported her by being flexible so she can seek therapy and attend doctor's appointments when needed. Does she work at the Mayo Clinic? Anyway, she advised those with mental health issues to carve out their own path and be their own advocate when navigating what they need. Pay attention to yourself, because you're the only person who can truly understand how you feel, and seek help when needed, because you are not alone. Although Gomer doesn't typically share her story with others, she is sharing it now because I don't care what people think anymore. In the beginning, I was very quiet about it because I was concerned that people would think that if I had anxiety and depression, that I would be unable to function. But I've had a career at Mayo for the past 10 years. So that's your story. So, and it gives you the opportunity to share your story and so on and so forth. And a large part of this is looking for signs, and we're going to talk about that. I'm actually going to do a two-parter on this, where the first part is going to be just talking about depression and people's stories and my story, and then the second half is going to talk about ways to find help, get a counselor, and maybe how to spark conversations with that counselor, and so on and so forth. So basically, the first half will be about depression. The second half will be about tools you can use in order to help with your depression. One thing I'd like to talk about with this is my own story with respect to depression. So for me, the depression and anxiety very much go hand in hand. And I started initially with anxiety, and I was diagnosed with that at first. And then as I continued to have issues with work, then I eventually was diagnosed with depression. And I can't say that my story is really any different than anybody else. I'm just wanting to tell it so somebody out there can feel like they are not alone. That there are others out there that are dealing with similar things. And so for me, a lot of my anxiety has to do with, and I just figured this out, has to do with imposter syndrome. And I think I'd like to do another podcast or another episode on it, just imposter syndrome in general. But my depression has to do, the anxiety and depression are centered around imposter syndrome. And it wasn't until I was talking with my counselor that it was a light bulb moment, because she was asking me what caused my initial anxiety. And it was that I felt like I had to be perfect. And I still feel that way from time to time. And I felt like at the time that I was just not meeting the expectations of my bosses. And so initially I felt like I wasn't meeting the expectation of my boss. And I was extremely overwhelmed with that feeling, because it felt like no matter what I did, I could not meet her expectations at all. And then I ended up moving into a different position, still feeling not confident, and going into another position that was brand new. And the same thing happened there. Like, I felt like I could not meet the expectations of the leadership team. And I tried everything that I could, and it just continued to snowball. Like, I do have a learning disability, and I do learn a lot slower than others. And it takes me a long time to understand something. It takes me a long time to memorize something. It takes me a long time to read through something. If there is training that lasts, say, an hour, it takes me probably about 3 hours to get through it, because I have to write notes. And when I was going to school, I had to learn how to learn. And I didn't learn that until I got into college. And so now I think I have a clear understanding of how I need to learn. And so when I do that, if I have to take an hour-long training, I use my technique, which is taking notes, really, to learn. Because for me, I have to write things down. I seem to comprehend it a lot better. And so going through this and going into a new job, I was doing all the things that I could, but I felt like I could not learn fast enough for them. And I could not meet their expectations. And I felt so stupid, because I just kept failing, and I kept failing, and I kept failing. And that tends to lead to more failure. From my experience that I had, that I had basically was set up to fail. And I'm not saying that they set me up to fail, but I was set up to fail from the very get-go, because I went in with no confidence, and I continued to lose any kind of confidence that I had, because I kept failing. And so I kept not doing well at the job. And then it just snowballed from there. When I was having problems with learning, and I was having memory issues with respect to my learning disability and being able to comprehend things, it was like a double-edged sword. I was not able to learn well or fast because of my learning disability, and then I was not able to learn well or fast because of the depression and the anxiety that I was under. And top that to age of going through menopause, I was set up to fail from the very get-go. And I'm not trying to point fingers. I did everything in my power to be successful, and I just think from the very start I wasn't. And so it was a really awful experience, and I eventually left that job and into a new position that I felt really successful at. I was starting to get my confidence back. It was a job that I thought that I could do well. My boss and I got along really well. I really enjoyed working with her. And quite honestly, it was probably one of the best years of my career, just because I really enjoy everything that I was doing. But occasionally my anxiety and depression would creep in and I would start to feel like I wasn't meeting expectations. And she had no expectations on me whatsoever. That was the joy that I had with this position because I had a lot of freedom with it. And she didn't have really any stringent expectations. We just discussed how we were going to do the position because it was brand new and I was the first one in it, so it was brand new. And we talked about how we were going to move forward with the position, and with that I was able to set a standard, if you will, for the position, and there were things that she wanted to accomplish and I helped her accomplish that. Unfortunately, she did end up retiring long before we could accomplish really anything. And so I feel like there's this pattern. Like the first position, I didn't stay long enough to really accomplish anything. And I felt like I was failing. The second position, again, I felt like I was failing and I didn't get to really accomplish anything. Then I went to another position, and while we were getting along great and we were doing great things and we were moving forward, then she retired. And again, I didn't get to finish, what we started together. And then now currently, actually, there was another short time frame in there where I did a temporary position, and the person that I was under at the time very much to me felt like these other two people with their expectations. And I felt really stupid working with her not because of the relationship or anything, but I put her on a pedestal because she's really smart, she's really good at her job, and we don't think the same. This is where the neurodivergence come in. We don't think the same. And so when she would request something of me to do a quick task or something, I would interpret it how I would interpret it, and then I would provide her how I thought she wanted the task done. And 10 out of 10 times I provided her with not what she was wanting. I started to learn that I needed to send her an email and say, okay, this is how I interpret what you have asked of me. If this is incorrect, could you please explain? Or could you please provide additional information or something like that? I had to find a way to accommodate her to help accommodate my neurodivergence. And so there was that little time period of working with her and feeling, again, not like I was meeting her expectations. And so I started to lose confidence. And I was really struggling. I was struggling before, but I'm struggling again. And so that's also, too, where the PTSD comes in. Because I, before, was having these issues and not feeling like I could meet expectations. And the PTSD, I felt like I was in a similar situation. And so my anxiety and depression really kicked in. And I'm still in that zone right now, even though I've gone on to another position, which I really love. I love the people I work with. The team is really great. I've enjoyed working with them. I think we work really well together. But my anxiety is really just there waiting to come alive, if you will. And so I've had a couple of struggles. Like I didn't go to work last Monday because I struggle if I have a really long break, because 5 days around Christmas, that when I go back, I struggle with the anxiety of getting back into the routine of work. And so that Monday I was really struggling with anxiety. And so I ended up spending the day in bed. With the depression, which is really what this whole diatribe is about, is that, like anyone, my depression puts me at a really low spot. So when I was at my worst a couple of jobs ago, and I felt like I wasn't meeting their expectation, that I didn't get out of bed. And this is what I want to talk about. I want to talk about the details of the depression that I was under or in, because I know that others are out there feeling this way. Because I was extremely depressed, and I still am, but maybe not to the level I was then. I did not get out of bed. I kept a big thing of peanut butter by my bed with a spoon and paper towels, and I would just eat peanut butter during the day. So I didn't have to go downstairs and eat. I knew I needed to eat, but I didn't care about eating, so I didn't want to go downstairs and eat. So I just ate peanut butter. 2 months. On occasion, I think I maybe on occasion did eat a few things in here and there, but overall, it was mostly peanut butter during that time. And I didn't shower. I didn't shower in those 2 months. And I know that's gross, and I know people are going to judge me for that, but that's what depression is, not showering. And I still do that, not to the length of 2 months, but there are times where I will go a week and a half maybe with not showering because I just don't feel like showering. And I know for a fact that the shower is going to feel good. And one of my favorite things to do is shower and have really fresh bed sheets. But sometimes even that can be overwhelming to do, and do laundry. And so I may not do laundry as often as I should. Again, I know that's gross, but that's what depression is all about. And so when I was at my worst, I went no showering for 2 months, and I ate peanut butter off the side table next to my bed. I didn't have dogs then, so I didn't have to worry about letting them out and going for a walk, which was helpful at the time. But I also knew that I needed to get myself out of that. And so that was the reason why I went and got a dog, because I was like, I need something to force me to go outside and do something different. And so I got a dog, and I love her. She's incredible. She's the best thing that's happened to me. And I appreciate her patience with me with respect to not going on walks every day, because I know she deserves it. And she loves going out. But it can be hard. But anyway, during those 2 months, I actually was on Family Medical Leave Act, and which gives employees 3 months of time to it keeps their job. For me, it was to try and get rid of the anxiety, but I always knew I was going to have to go back to work, and so my anxiety was never at a level that was comfortable. And same with the depression. The depression was, I always knew I was going to have to go back to a job that I felt like I was failing at. And I just kept failing. Because I just kept not wanting to go back. I dreaded it. And that feeling is still with me today. Hence, I think the reason for the PTSD is I dread getting up and going into work. Even though now I love the position that I'm in, and I love what I'm doing, and I feel like I'm making a difference. But that too is something that I associate with my job, is finding something that is fulfilling and that I feel like I'm making a difference. Over the last several years, I have not really felt that, and even things that I had prior to those positions were taken away from me for one reason or another. And so things that I was working towards or working on that really provided fulfillment, and felt like I felt like I was really making a difference and contributing to the organization. And which is currently the thing that I'm doing now really does do that. It's about recruitment. I'm part of a recruitment team, and so I really love it. I love recruiting. I love working with students. It's a lot of fun for me to see them be successful, and that's what I'm doing now, which is a ton of fun. Thing is that everything is still there. All of the insecurities and everything that I dealt with is still very much a part of my life, and it's very difficult to continue to go down this road because I just want out. I just want this chapter of my life to close so I can go on and actually live a comfortable life. Because I see, like I said in a recent reel, I think it was reel, or it may have been a short, I don't remember, but is that I see people that I know going out and doing things and living life and seeing family and going out of town and so on and so forth. And I'm really jealous of that. I'm really envious of them being able to do that. And I actually at one point was somebody that could do that, and now I'm not. I wanted to tell my story, and I wanted to kind of get into the details a little bit because I wanted people out there to know that you're not alone, that depression can be so overwhelming at times, and I think, unfortunately, the only people that really understand it are those who are in it. So that's why I wanted to share my story, because I wanted people out there to know that you're not alone and that we will try and get through this together. It's going to be a hard journey. It already has been a hard journey, but I'm really trying to get through this, and I just want to invite you to join me. Let's talk about depression. What is depression? And I have an article here from the Los Angeles County Department of Mental Health. And I like this article because it talks about depression, and I thought the overall article was really good, but I really also like the definition that was provided here. So it says, what is major depression? Major depression is a common and serious medical illness that affects your mood, behavior, thinking, and health. Major depression is different from the passing feelings of unhappiness that everyone experiences in life. It also is different from the intense grief brought about by death of a loved one. Feelings of unhappiness or grief decrease as time goes on. Depression, on the other hand, usually does not get better without medical treatment. A person's ability to go to work or school and to function productively at home or on the job is reduced. I believe that 100%. Being with other people is stressful and often avoided, causing problems with relationships. Depression can be especially dangerous when it leads to thoughts of unaliving yourself. Some people with major depression do not understand that they are ill. Some people mistakenly think that depression is a sign of personal weakness. And in reality, the symptoms of depression are signals that medical help is needed. Let's go through some of these symptoms, and I can talk a little bit about what I have been dealing with respect to my symptoms. So the first one here on this list is ongoing sad, anxious, and empty feelings. Yes, I do deal with that. I quite often feel like I'm just not good enough, and a lot of that comes from work, as was previously stated, with respect to maybe having imposter syndrome. And I'd like to take a deeper dive into that as well. But the next thing here is loss of interest in activities that normally are pleasurable, including sex. And I will say that for myself, not the sex aspect of it, but I've definitely lost interest in just about everything that I loved. I used to be very outgoing. I used to have a lot of friends. I used to go out. I used to be active. I used to run. I used to do a lot of races. I still could do some. I may not be able to do races anymore, but I at least have the ability to where I could still swim and I could still ride my bike. I just choose not to because I'm unhappy and depressed. So definitely a loss of interest. Appetite and weight changes, either a loss or gain, and absolutely for sure. I have a terrible relationship with food, and I tend to fuel my depression with food. And if I'm feeling bad, I will tend to go towards something that's really fatty or greasy or maybe even sugar. And if you saw in the previous episode, the part 2, where since this is January, I'm doing dry January, where I am actually giving up sugar and sugar substitutes, which has been pretty hard. Not the sugar itself, but the sugar substitutes, because I have it in just about everything. It seems like the waters that I drink, the protein bars that I eat, the yogurt that I eat. It's been hard to not have the sugar substitutes. But anyway, so yes, there are some weight gains. Sometimes people just can't eat because they're upset and they're sad and depressed. Like myself, I tend to overeat because I try to fill that void. Sleep problems, yes. Insomnia, early morning awakening, oversleeping. I tend to oversleep. I tend to sleep too much. When, like I mentioned earlier, I spent 2 months in bed, and that's all I did for those 2 months. And when I'm having a bad day or I'm really depressed, I tend to go to bed. I want to just not be a part of the day anymore. I tend to try and just sleep through it. Irritability. I think this is huge because I do have irritability. And there was a statement that I said years ago and I wish I had this statement, but it was basically judging somebody by their reaction without understanding why there was a reaction. And that just recently happened to me because I don't know if you want to say exploded or unloaded on a team that I'm working on. because of things that were going on, and it wasn't because of what was going on in the team. It was more of an interaction that I had with a person who triggered my PTSD. And my fear is that they saw my reaction and now they're judging me based on the reaction I had with respect to what we were talking about. But the reality of it is that they were not at all the same. My reaction was based on something that happened to me 2, 3, 4 years ago, but I'm still dealing with it now, and so that's where my reaction came from. And so probably one way to get rid of that is just having an open communication with the team and to let them know. But I tend to not talk about this stuff at work because I don't want them to know. Because I know, number one, I don't want the judgment, I don't want the stigma, and I just don't want to tell people. I don't want it to affect my career. I don't want somebody to know about it and then be like, oh, she put in for a job, but she's also really depressed and she lashes out at people. I don't want that to define who I am, because I know it does and it can. So anyway, as I move on here, it says loss of energy and sense of fatigue, of being slowed down, and I do feel that way. I tend to just not, feel like I'm a part of the day, which kind of feels like fatigue for me. Next here on the list is feelings of guilt, worthlessness, and helplessness. Yes, that is so me. That is so me. I feel guilty for calling in sick. I certainly feel worthless, and I also tend to feel helpless. I think that goes to trying to reach perfection when I know I'm not perfect. It's trying to reach for something that's unobtainable, and I continually try to reach for it, and I fail. And that's my problem, and it's something that I put on myself. It's not at all what's being expected of me. And so because of that, I tend to feel like I'm always failing. Although I will say, my current job, I don't feel that way, because I tend to have confidence in it. I've done it before. I've been successful in it, and I enjoy it. So I will say that I tend to not feel that way unless my PTSD starts to creep in, and I tend to have imposter syndrome. So anyway, feelings of hopelessness and hopelessness and pessimism, and I tend to be pretty negative. There's no doubt I've been negative all my life. I tend to think the worst, in that if somebody reacts to me a certain way, I think it's because they hate me. And probably the way they reacted to me has absolutely nothing to do with me, but that's where my mind goes. And I will say this, I didn't used to be that way. I actually just had this conversation with my counselor recently, where prior to 2019, I didn't give a crap about what people thought about me. And in normal circumstances, I don't give a crap what people think about me. If I'm at the grocery store or I'm out walking my dog or whatever, I don't care what people think of me or what they look at, what their opinion is of me when they look at me. I'll go out in my pajamas when I walk my dog. I don't care. But that feeling does occur for me when I'm at work. I do very much care what people think of me at work. Hence the reason that I worry about people judging me based on my reaction, when the reaction has nothing to do with the situation that I was in. So anyway, difficulty concentrating, yes. Remembering, yes. And making decisions, yes. All three of those. And look, I alluded to earlier that I do have difficulty with concentrating, and I definitely have difficulty with remembering things. So number one, I have a disability that causes me to have terrible comprehension. I cannot remember things for the life of me. I would love to be able to have a photographic memory, but I just don't. Tag on my disability, plus the feeling of depression, plus the anxiety, and my memory was just crap. And I will say that when I moved into a better job to where it fit my skill set, my memory was sharp as a tack, because it had to be. Not that it didn't have to be earlier, but the position that I was in, I had to remember things because, and even in my current position, I have to remember things, and it has to, when I am at my best, my memory is also at my best. And that's something for employers to think about. You want your employees to be at their best, right? So why not provide things to them that offer them the ability to be at their best level? Whether that is teleworking for a couple of days a week, or maybe having a remote position altogether, giving them the ability to maybe work from a place that allows them to be closer to family, things like that. Work-life balance is huge with respect to that. Anyway, so I digress. So this goes on to thoughts about unaliving yourself and possible unaliving attempts. I can't remember what the word is, but I told my counselor that I just didn't want to, I didn't really want to pass away, but I didn't, how do I say it? I didn't want to pass away, but I also didn't want to be a part of the day. But I didn't care if it happened. So if I got into a car wreck or I got hit by a car or whatever, I didn't care that it happened. That's not true for me anymore. Now that I am in my 50s, yikes, I tend to worry that I'm wasting my life because you only have one life. And I'm sitting here for the last 6 years wasting away in my house where I feel comfortable. And I really want to be able to get out there and experience life. And it's been very difficult to do that for the last 6 years. The next thing here is ongoing body aches and pains or problems with digestion that are not caused by a physical disease. And I don't have that issue. The time, not with depression anyways, with anxiety I tend to feel nauseous. And that is probably the number one on my list with respect to anxiety is feeling nauseous. But I don't have that necessarily with the depression aspect. So this article goes on to how depression is treated. It can be the symptoms, the physical health, any type of history of mental health or physical illness. Maybe folks in your family have a history of mental health or mental illness, and the process is to go out and get a diagnostic evaluation and then a physical examination as well, along with labs. And I've done all that, and that's where I got my diagnosis. Thank you all for joining us today. I really hope you enjoyed today's episode where we talked about depression, the symptoms of depression, and stories of depression. We'll see you next time in 2 weeks where we'll do a part 2 on depression and the tools that we can use and hopefully help us with our depression. So we will see you then. See you in 2 weeks. If today's episode of Real Stories, Real Struggles, and Real Hope resonated with you, please like, comment, and subscribe. Your engagement helps others find this space and feel less alone.